This is Auteur Detour, wherein three film lovers travel through the filmographies of cinema's most important directors in hopes of finding a greater understanding on the other side.
Hi, this is Auteur Detour. I'm Travis, here with Ian and Chris. Get it out, guys. What do you got?
You think the darkness is your ally?
All right. Wrap it up.
That was bad.
Okay.
That was bad.
You know, in spite of that ridiculous introduction, we're here talking about a serious filmmaker, Christopher Nolan. More than just a director, you know, he's kind of a modern philosopher. His films that feature the comic book character Batman are a means to explore the deep questions that plague our society. In Batman Begins, Nolan explored the idea of what it takes for a man to embody an idea. In The Dark Knight, he asked, how does society deal with terror that can't be approached rationally? And in The Dark Knight Rises, he poses his deepest question yet. What if Batman fall in hole, but can't get out? That's it. The story begins with an equally amazing and ridiculous airplane hijack where we meet Bane, a super strong, curiously accented mercenary who kidnaps a nuclear physicist from his CIA handlers. Back at Wayne Manor, we meet back up with Bruce, now a middle-aged man filled with regret, waiting to die alone. Gotham is virtually crime-free, but the end of history is boring and something is burbling under the streets. Pretty soon, Bane has taken control of the entire city. Bruce is in Hole Jail, making friends with any old man he can find. And that's it. That's the movie. Can Batman get out of the hole in time to save Gotham? Will he pick the right girlfriend from his bad bitch co-stars? Will he find a worthy successor to take up the cowl when he's gone? And, most importantly, is any social or environmental progress worth pursuing if it could conceivably maybe lead to utter collapse and destruction? The answers are yes, no, and oh god, no. I love this movie. What do you guys think of it?
Movie too.
I love this intro. That was the best fucking intro we've ever
thanks,
done.
Guys. Thank you.
You just really you set the bar like into our third season, dude. Damn it. You know, if you don't mind me going first, there's a couple times when I need to, you know, basically eat crow, because I remember most of this entire time not enjoying this movie. I kind of down talk it whenever we reference the third Batman movie. I admit I saw The Dark Knight Rises once in the theater and I was super disappointed with it. Maybe because I had The Dark Knight in my brain so deeply embedded and I had this particular vision of what I thought this movie was going to be. It went a slightly different direction and I was like, I don't like his Bane's voice. I don't like this. I don't like that, you know? And oh my God, this is such a better movie than I remember. Sometimes you can watch a movie through different eyes or under a different context and receive a completely different experience, and this was one of those. So definitely reversed my opinion on this one. This is probably my second favorite of the trilogy now, and actually one of higher ups in the Nolan filmography, really. I liked it.
I'm only disappointed because I don't get to use my joke because I knew you didn't like this movie, and I was going to say, this is going to be extremely painful for you.
For you.
So what are your overall thoughts, Ian? How'd you like it?
Okay, I'll get into it. My original watch, like Chris, was disappointed. I liked parts of it for sure in the theater, but it's undeniable. Like the action set pieces are so good, but like as a whole, I was seeing a lot of the flaws that I still see in this movie. Like this is so completely filled with flaws. I almost love it like as a curio. Like it's such a weird piece of something to dissect because there's so much just insanity in it of like what kind of thoughts were going into different things.
It's hit and miss, and I'm not just talking about the giant fight scenes where every extra is swinging wildly at the air, but go on.
Oh yeah, well,
right.
But yeah, so I wasn't, I was disappointed, but I also liked it. And then it's a movie that every time I watch it, I have rewatched it a bunch of times, and every time I've watched it, I've liked it more and forgiven any of the flaws more, like in a different kind of way, you know? So yeah, I don't know. And now this is probably like my fourth or fifth time watching it, and I was like, God, you know, I fucking love this movie. It's so great. Like it's really interesting. But I mean, yeah, we'll get into the interesting parts of it, I guess. That was just my journey with it.
So if I could share my kind of experience with it, like there have been a few movies in my life where I'm so excited for a film that I have dreams about it. Like I dream up seeing it and then I wake up and go, wait, what happened? And I'm like, I feel like I'm watching the movie and then I wake up and I go, oh no, I just got these weird little visions that are sort of inspired by the trailer, but they're sort of just like out of place and they just feel so weird. What's crazy about this movie is I had that experience with this movie. This was one of my most anticipated films in my life. And watching the movie was exactly like having a dream about the movie. Like it almost made no sense.
way.
It's just these little weird visions of stuff that barely fit together. And I was like left shaken at the end. I was like, what the hell was that? I mean,
I see.
I liked it. I was kind of moved by it, but The Dark Knight Rises has one of the greatest trailers ever made. That the snowy kind of like, there's this movie, The Fall of the Roman Empire from the 50s, and I feel like they were really going for that vibe with like the slow snow falling in the city, and and the vision of like the kids singing the national anthem of America while like basically the hordes like the hordes are basically like the what do you call them, the barbarians at the gate, right? It's like the fall of Western civilization is what he's like imagining in this, like the fall of American society.
Yeah.
And this was they filmed this movie before Occupy Wall Street happened, but by the time the trailer dropped, Occupy Wall Street, he was definitely like on the pulse of something. And when they showed in the trailer like rich people getting pulled out of their mansions and stuff like that, I was like, this movie is going to be crazy. And then by the time when you see the movie, all that stuff happens as quickly in the film as it does in the trailer, and with as little kind of like consequence or kind of as little weight, So it didn't really go, for me, the direction that I wanted it to either. Like he kind of touches on these things, but the conclusions that he reaches are so like I said, I mean, it's just all about like we can't create like sustainable energy because what if it's like nuclear, and what if it like destroys the world, and we can't like upend the social order because what if they're mean to people, you know what I mean? It's like it's just politically it's idiotic, but in terms of the filmmaking, it's kind of beautiful, it's kind of wonderful. I love so much about it. Yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
I have like my notes book here, and like this whole first page that I started writing notes is all sort of negative stuff about this movie.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's insane that I'm writing these notes when like I love this movie, like my last note on this page is, next page is like things that work, hopefully, because there's so much in it that doesn't work. We talk about Nolan's putting in plot holes thing. I don't feel like that in this one. It's hard to know when it's purposeful and when it's just like his heart's not sort of in what he's doing at any given moment in this movie. But just from maybe the best way to go through this movie then is to like retrace the, in the way that the movie does, like from the beginning, because just like the idea that where Gotham is when we open up with this movie is like crime doesn't exist anymore because it's now illegal to be a criminal.
Yeah, we finally solved it.
We fixed it. The 10th Act. It's now illegal to do crime. And it's like, it's such a stupid sort of like, trick.
I don't know.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the way I see it is more like Gotham has finally entered its like the Eden. It's finally like the holistic place, whereas before it was, of course, this tumultuous place full of crime and corruption and what have you, right? So it's got to like start from that space, and that's kind of consistent with as the movie progresses. It's about like these cycles of rising and falling, right? And you have to fall in order to rise again, you know, so to speak. And you know, they want to bring, this movie includes like the absolute lowest, it's almost comical, like the low point. Like, there's the low point of a character in a movie. Let's make this as low as absolutely humanly possible. Like, this guy's lost his butler, he's lost all of his money, he's lost his mansion, he's lost his woman, he's lost his back.
If I ever lost my
everything, he's
butler,
underground.
I swear.
You know, dude, I can't. You know, I'll send you mine. I've got 3 of them, Travis. Don't worry, you're my boy. But you know what I mean. Like, it's like, let's make it, build it up so we can break it all the way down, and then we can build it right back up again. I know it's kind of a silly thing to like, oh, all of crime is eradicated, you know, but it's sort of at least thematically consistent with where the trajectory of the film is supposed to end.
Yes, and also, you know, it's not just there is no crime, but it's also we've jailed anybody. Like, we've gone way beyond like reasonable reasons to put, like, basically like jails are overcrowded and there's stuff with like 1 million people, just like they are actually in America. Again, I think he is kind of in a like maybe a ham-fisted way or something, like trying to deal with like real issues that America has. And
wait, what?
America's Chris, I have to break some bad news for you. America's prisons are overcrowded with Italian mobsters.
Only Italian
clowns.
mobsters.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. There's some really. If you look at the crime stats, the Italians are. He's touching on in like a oblique, weird way. Like, I think the fact that American prisons are like full to the brim, and it's like
I
I didn't get that.
I don't know,
from
I
a
feel that.
theme. I don't even mean from a theme, because I kind of agree with you, Travis, but I do think that, like, I mean, you're saying the same thing mostly, but just from like a story place, though, I mean, like, you know, this movie kind of disregards The Dark Knight in a lot of way, besides that, like, you know, they are dealing with the Dent Act, which is because of The Dark Knight. It's really more of like a sequel to Batman Begins in a lot of ways to me, because the way that it ends with, or The Dark Knight ends with, sort of like Batman taking the blame for, you know, all of the crime in the city, basically, and like, you know, like giving the scapegoat for the police to be able to do this kind of thing. It doesn't make sense to me that like that would eradicate crime in the city. Like, that's what, I don't know. I mean, I guess that
did.
like,
No, I mean, yeah. Again, they've created laws like in the wake of this crazy stuff happening, like the Joker. Basically, they used that terrorism of the Joker and, in the minds of Gothamites, I guess,
Batman,
the Batman, to, you know, create laws that go probably like beyond like what we would normally think of as constitutionally allowed. And
I mean,
and
you're
with that,
right.
they've been able
Because-
to shove 1 million people in prison. Again, we've
You're
kind
right,
of done
because
that in America.
The whole thing
Right.
with Jim Gordon's, you know, story in this movie, which he's playing such a different character than he does in the other 2 Batmans. He's filled with sort of like regret and anger, and like, you know, he's like a fucking crime. He's like a you know, police chief. You know, he's not like a sensitive cop. He's like the barking police chief in this in a lot of ways. The thing that he's regretful about, like on paper, is that like he was lying that Batman killed Harvey Dent, right? Even though like Batman killed Harvey Dent, but he didn't do it in like a mean way. So,
well, also that he
he's
killed
like-
all the other people too that night.
But there was like 3 people. You know, it's not like it's really, I think his guilt is more about what they've done. You know, that's never said objectively, but like what the lie did to the city, which is like create this sort of police state that like
Right.
is not
Right.
like you said. That's why I think that you are right about that, because he can't just be mad that he like betrayed Batman, because it was Batman's choice, right? Like, he's not just sad about that.
Yeah.
And then also, starting at the
They're
beginning,
living a
of the movie,
lie.
Batman-
That's yeah.
Exactly,
exactly.
right. The noble lie, right? Both the last 2 movies end with that sort of same premise, just on opposite sides of the coin, I guess, so to speak, right?
Why did
Mhm, the lucky.
was it worth it, do you guys think, for Michael Caine, for Alfred to reveal that he was lying 8 years later, that he burned the letter that he never knew existed and all that stuff? Like, that was a weird moment in this movie too.
And the way it's lit is
I
so
don't love-
unusual for like a movie. You know, he catches him in this back room, you know, like taking off his like bat clothes or whatever. And
Right.
it feels like you're not supposed to be seeing it. Like it really feels like it's between takes or something like that, and they're backstage. It's such a weird moment. I love it. It's one of my favorite in the movie, actually.
And well, you know what? Also, that's a little bit unusual for Nolan in that he's all about exposition. And this movie, you really needed to actually be there for so many of the prior film nuances because he doesn't explain, he doesn't show you a lot of that. So that specific context of him burning the letter from Rachel Dawes, like we needed to see that. We needed to understand what that meant for him.
It would have been insane even for Nolan to have that kind of exposition to be like, you remember when Rachel, you know, like to set that up. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Like it is his style for sure.
I mean, I think it was necessary. I mean, again, we're looking at like he's trying to make the lowest possible low imaginable, and that's like another notch to take Batman down, I guess. So I thought it felt necessary because otherwise, it's still Alfred has to go someplace. He can't just be his ride or die forever. If we really want to have like the full, again, descent into the pit, so to speak, right? Alfred's got to go. Everybody who's got his back's got to go.
Well, to me, that is the best part about this movie is that, like you said, a sort of joke about what the question that movie is asking is, can he fall in a hole and how does he get out? But
it's his father's greatest fear that he's fallen and he can't get up.
That's true. That's so true. Oh, no. I wonder if he thought of that. That's so funny. No, I think that the question that he's asking is like, how do I end a Batman story, right? Like he's like, I mean, his Batman's story, because it seems like in culture and in, the world that he's built, like there's no way to end the Batman story in a lot of ways. Like he's just got to keep fighting these, and then he found a way, and it's a very satisfying wrap up to his story.
If not totally ridiculous, but yeah, I mean, the one thing.
No, it is ridiculous. I mean, it's super ridiculous, but like,
yeah.
How are we at the end already? I thought we were going to go piece by piece because
You're right.
I do have something to say about the end, but are we ready to talk about that yet?
It's like Memento.
No,
so this is the Memento version.
I just want to say, one thing is when you say like what his questions are about this movie, how do we end it? I don't know if that's his main question. One of the big questions though that I feel like he's asking is, how can I use this canvas to build the biggest movie I can think of? And I feel like a lot of the plot of the movie is backwards engineered from how do I build the biggest sets? How do I film like 1,000 extras? Like, you know what I mean? I remember him just bragging about how this was the biggest film since like Intolerance by D.W. Griffith or something like that. Like, I really feel like that was where his head was at. And again, I think you see it in the tiny details of like, again, people fighting and there's no one connecting, and it just like, it barely holds together because he just was so interested in the big IMAX kind of tapestry.
So can I get into a little context for that then, just for the audience?
No, I'm just going to riff for a couple of minutes. You guys just hang back.
He didn't want to make another Batman movie. He was done after Dark Knight. And that also has like a sort of satisfying ending in a weird way. Like this is what they need. I think it needed to be made, another one, and it was obvious it was going to, but he never had a deal to make a third one. They really had to pull him back in. He did not want to make one. You can see in his filmography where his brain is at right now. Like he's making Inception and Interstellar bookmarking this movie. And like those movies are such sort of high or large concept and large set piece and large, just like everything is so much bigger than a small Batman story. As small, Batman is not a small story, but considerably smaller than like a world building thing that you're doing with those two movies, or universe building. And like, I feel like that when I watch this movie, like the thing that he's most excited about is that opening 6-minute IMAX set piece where it's just like, it's just about how big he can make it, like you said.
Okay, so who saw this in IMAX as just the prologue, playing before whatever movie that it played before? Who saw it in theaters?
I didn't see it in IMAX.
Okay, so I did see the prologue, and if I may be so bold, I saw it with a completely different audio mix than the one that
No,
ended
yeah,
up showing in
yeah,
theaters. They
exactly.
they never admitted it to my knowledge, but they completely.
No, they did.
Oh,
They
they
did.
did. Because it
So
sounded
not
Wait,
only
what?
not only an audio mix, do
So
you not
when I
notice?
originally saw it in IMAX, Bane's voice was at the same volume as every other actor, and you could barely tell what he was saying.
Mhm.
And
Uh-huh.
it was, and I was, and like, again, this
yep.
is like Nolan's, dedication
I'm gonna blow
to
your mind.
realism in movies because he was wearing a mask and you couldn't hear his garbled
Yeah.
voice out of the mask,
Dude.
and they completely re-recorded it, put his voice at like 10 decibels louder than everybody else. Anyway.
That
Well,
makes
yeah, I
perfect
was gonna
sense,
blame
and
my-
partly why I probably didn't care for it because I couldn't understand a word this guy was saying anyway. You know me.
yeah.
For those who are listening, I have a very hard time hearing things in the theater, especially. So that makes absolute perfect sense, man. At least I got to see this one with subtitles. I watched it, just so I can catch every single nuance, which I've been doing lately. And that's actually maybe a huge reason for my experience this time around because I can actually hear what he's saying, and it's actually great. Like I love the
But when you
screenplay
saw
in this
it in
movie.
the theaters, it was just the 6-minute prologue that Travis is talking about. That was.
But no, I really couldn't hear. Like I honestly,
Yeah,
It's hard to
I've
hear
had
either way.
subtitles.
It's hard anyway.
So
but
I
this
honestly
is the
didn't hear him
reality
anyway.
that's gonna blow your mind, though, is that he shot the whole movie like Travis is saying, and then they showed the 6-minute thing, and it was such a backlash that literally every Bane line is ADR'd.
Yeah.
Like every Bane line in the movie, he
Interesting.
came back in and he gave a different performance than he did on the set. And to me, fucking Tom Hardy's performance in this is so special to me. Like you can't top the Joker, obviously. Like I talked about it 2 weeks ago. Like one of the best performances of all time. And yet Tom Hardy comes in and he brings this like completely different thing that's like like this like weird lyrical sort of jaunty thing that you're just like, God, what a fucking weird move. And all of that was ADR'd after he shot the performance.
Yeah.
Like the initial one was more just like, this will hurt for you, like,
Right.
whatever,
No,
not like-
well, I mean, it was still pretty. It was similar to what he like from again.
Yeah.
Just comparing the two scenes, it was absolutely similar. And to be honest, I kind of preferred the original one.
That's funny.
Yeah, but yeah, it was definitely a little more over the top. When again, he's being blasted kind of above the volume of everybody else. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
It's easy to tell
Wow.
with ADR. Yeah.
That makes so much sense. I was like, what? Why is his voice? What's he going with this? And I wanted to look it up, and he actually was inspired by this, like a bare knuckle boxing champion from Ireland, who's a like Romani gypsy, and I'm like, I gotta hear this guy's voice now, and I played it. There was even a video on YouTube of a side-by-side comparison of Tom Hardy
Oh, wow.
as Bane versus Bartley Gorman, because they start with the boxer guy, and I'm like, I can't. I don't know where he's going. But he just, to me, honestly, sounds like a standard, almost just British accent. Doesn't have a strong Irish brogue or anything like that. But I suppose when you are a maybe it makes more the distinction is probably clearer when you're a native, British, when you have a native British accent.
Tom Hardy was so charming in Inception, and they're like, people are like, and so handsome and stuff. And people are like, we want more of that guy, and it's like, oh, you do?
I know.
You think you do? How about we're gonna turn
pounds
him?
of muscle.
We're gonna just inject him with every steroid in Hollywood. We're just gonna give him to you as this big bald ball in a mask, and just
it's
a voice that is not placeable in any country in any region.
No.
Right? Well, what's weird, because they were saying how he was talking about after the movie, how people they're like, wow, you look so much bigger in the movie or whatever, because he's only 5'9". They had to put him in like 3-inch like shoes to make him way bigger, because Christian Bale, Morgan Freeman, and Michael Caine are all bigger than he is, like stature wise. But he was talking about how not only was he lifting weights, he was just eating a lot of food. He's like, I would just pound pizza. I was eating a lot of burgers. Like I just needed to gain weight. So it wasn't like he was just getting shredded and yoked, which he was lifting weight, but he was just trying to get big, like just bulky. And you see that scene where he has his shirt off. He's got the kind of not a gut per se, but he's like bigger, and
He's
that's
like one
not
of those
all like muscle mass.
Yeah, he's like one of those like big weightlifting guys. Those like, I don't know what they're called. Iron Men. I don't know.
Yeah. He's incredibly charismatic though. Like even with all of the you can't see him and you can't, even when you couldn't hear him, like he's such a presence, and Inception was sort of a breakup for him, obviously. And like
But
in
what
that movie, he pops so
Right.
much. I mean,
Well, no, what he does in this movie that I noticed much more this time around is his eye. When he's intense, his eyes make everything really intense. When he's like fighting close up with Batman or another person, he kind of pulls him close, and his eyes get really wide. That's a fucking scary sight, especially with the crazy mask on and everything. Like the intensity he's able to exude, given the limitations of his facial expressions.
Absolutely.
I don't know.
I
Pretty
love
solid
the
job.
one-on-one fight with Batman when Batman gets like wet and
Yeah.
stuff, and his accent changes for no reason.
Mhm.
I love that. Like it's kind of like a put on, like he's going to his real
Yeah.
voice or something like that. It's just like, wait, what is going on? I love that stuff. Like he gets so intense that he like
The
just
other
changes
thing that's
voice.
really special about Bane in this movie is, almost every line of his is incredibly quotable. Like the Joker, I guess,
Yeah.
where it's like there's so many things that you could just that just became part of the sort of cultural lexicon. Like,
Mhm.
So wait,
and I love moments that he chooses, like, putting the fucking palm in a weird face up, like on the guy's shoulder. Do you feel in control?
one of the best moments
Like,
of the movie. One of the coolest
it's
moments
so
of the movie. Yeah,
great.
love it.
Right.
Wait, so there's a couple scenes I don't like of Bane's though. When he gives like the speeches to the people and he's like, "Take back your city," like, I
Take
give it to you.
control,
I give.
Gotham.
Right.
And when
Yeah.
he's talking, he's like, "I give it to you, the people." And like, I know it's supposed to be like, oh, he's lying or whatever, but like, it just sounds so phony, and I don't understand. Like the leap from that to then the city rising up, or like that part is just glossed over, or just kind of like we just kind of breeze by it so quickly, and it's like, what happened? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
where are we now?
Yeah.
And
Well, because he had to
that-
reference
I
that when
have
he's
a-
talking to
I
Batman.
have
He's
a
like, "I
big
will give
fix
them
for
hope,
this
and then I'll
movie.
tear it down." Like, how are you going to give them
Not
hope?
that I
Yeah, that
think
little
it
tiny
needs-
speech.
I'm
you
gonna
know?
just waste everyone's time for 5 months until this bomb goes off. It's like the plot makes absolutely no sense, and it's
No,
like,
that's what I was gonna say earlier. It's just that like he's not the Joker. Like, why does he care about morality games with the city of Gotham? Like, the whole thing is that he's just there to destroy Gotham, right? And
so
I
again,
mean, I guess the idea is that he's gonna make them tear themselves apart, right? But
no, because they're
it's
living
just
under
like-
martial law. They don't like, you know what I mean? They
and
don't.
he's gonna explode it.
It's not
Like,
anarchy.
what's
It's
the
just like,
point?
yeah, exactly. The
Yeah.
bomb kind of like
So-
makes everything pointless, and yeah.
Yeah, it's a very stupid, like, there's no reason for any of it except for that there has to be plot in this movie. Like, I guess
And a
that's
ticking
all
time
that there is
bomb,
to that.
basically. It's got to be a countdown, right?
But,
We got to have the
but why?
stakes.
But why isn't he?
Just
why
set
is
it
he
off.
great,
Just
though?
set it up. Okay, and this is
Yeah,
the actually.
exactly.
So the plot itself, it's so kind of in the background that you
Mhm.
can kind of just ignore it and not worry about it. Except the one part that really sticks in my craw is whenever they reference that a regular person in Gotham has the remote. And every time they're like, and the crazy thing is, a regular person has it. And Batman's like, wait, he would never give it to a regular person. That can't happen. And it's just like, I don't buy however you convinced yourself that makes sense or that's compelling, like, you got to rewrite that part. It doesn't work. And when he's
It
like,
didn't
when
work
he's
at all.
yelling at him and beating him to death, and he's like, where's the trigger? I know you'd never give it to a regular person. And therefore, and it's just like, shut up. Please stop
Yeah.
referencing the
It's so
trigger.
stupid.
So that's
But to
that's
that
the
end-
only. That's almost the only part I don't like. Like the rest of it, I can say it's stupid. It doesn't work. But the only thing that really gets in the way of me enjoying it is whenever they reference the stupid trigger and how a regular person may or may not have it. I hate it.
And to that point, like he says, "Oh, any person can be Batman," as he flies off in this multi-million-dollar bat wing thing and drives off on a souped-up jet. Like,
After training for
oh,
like
any
years
person.
with like a ninja squadron, like at the
Exactly.
fringes of society,
With a $1 million
like honing
outfit,
his body and
bulletproof.
mind, and then working
Hold
like
on,
night.
you guys.
Anyway,
There's whole
But Billy down the street,
giant
he can be
parts of
Batman.
this movie that we have not even mentioned yet, and I do think that like my fix for the plot of this
what's your
movie
fix? What's your fix?
is that dump the idea that Talia al Ghul is in disguise as Miranda Tate from the beginning. There's no reason for her to be secretive and have that be a prestige for Christopher Nolan where she's revealed. We've already established that Batman will fuck a bad guy. Like, he does it in this movie, Like, there's no reason why he can't also still be torn. And if she's got the trigger the whole time and he's just, like, still, like, trying to sort of bargain with her about whether or not like Gotham is worth saving. Like she's somebody that you could argue that Gotham's worth saving, and she still doesn't believe it. Like I just think the whole idea that there's this mystery surrounding who Miranda Tate is that just doesn't pay off at all in my mind. Like everybody knew going into this movie
But I don't feel like that's the problem with the movie. So how does that fix the movie? He needs somebody to debate with?
No, because I just mean, the thing that needs fixing in this movie is the plot, right? It's just this sort of like there's no plot there. And if she's the one who's like, we're doing this, fulfilling the League of Shadows promise to destroy this place, and Batman like has a purpose to, sleep with her and want to like bargain with her. I mean, the whole thing should have been over before the movie started. Like they should have just come in and bombed the place, right? So why is she in the movie at all?
I like Christopher Nolan's version better than your version. I'm sorry, Ian. I don't quite get what you're saying the fix is. Like, how does I don't know. I don't get it. I'm sorry.
Well,
do you get it, Chris?
What do you get out of her being some fake environmentalist that infiltrates Wayne Enterprises when the whole plan is for her to blow up the city in 5 months?
Not a lot. Not a lot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't make any sense.
But
right?
Yeah.
So, and what do you get
How is
when
your
the
version
reveal
better,
is
though?
that like she's the one? Because to me, there's this unsuccessful love triangle in the movie also.
Yes.
Like that part just falls flat to me.
Right.
And
I don't know.
And I think,
it doesn't fall flat for me. I don't know.
What do you mean?
They look good, and he wants to be with both of them.
Well, the thing is like they do look good, and I like both of them in this movie. By the way, I want to be.
We haven't talked about Anne Hathaway at all. I
Hathaway
love
at all.
her
Or
in this
Joseph
movie.
Gordon-Levitt.
I love her in this movie. Did you say you don't like her?
No, I didn't say that. I said I do like her.
Oh, okay.
I said or Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Yeah.
We haven't mentioned either.
Just to mention them in the same sentence is kind of insulting to her in my mind. No, I'm just joking. I'm just joking. He's fine.
Yeah.
He's better in this movie than he is in Inception.
No, he's not. He's way too
Yes, he
smirky
is.
and like.
I think he's good.
He talked out the side of his mouth too much.
I think he's
smirk.
I think
The perma smirk, dude.
I want to come back to him.
Perma-smirk.
I know. I wrote down in my notes. Besides his squint, I like his performance in this movie. But whatever. I'm just nitpicking.
That's just what he looks like. That's.
I know. I'm kidding. No, I think he's actually good in this movie, and I do wish that he would have been Robin from the beginning because everybody knew
What?
he was Robin.
He's not
prestige
Robin. His
thing.
name is Robin. That doesn't make him
Shut up.
Robin.
He's Robin. How is he not Robin? He's going to be the new Batman.
I don't want to talk about this. He's
bad
he's
we're on
not
podcast.
Robin. It's a reference to Robin. He is not the character Robin. That makes no sense. You can't just say like we've rewritten the character
He's an
so much
orphan?
that he's now a cop.
He becomes
now
a
is
superhero
friends with
that works with Batman,
He's not a superhero.
and his name is Robin.
You can't just say like. There's a guy in the hat with a hat in the background. He represents
you
the
said he's not a
40s character
superhero.
Hat Man, who like
What do you mean he's not a superhero? The end of the movie, the whole point of the movie is that he becomes the next Batman. That the idea of Batman lives on because it's an idea, and
Right.
he's the guy to take up the mantle.
So he's
He's gonna
more
do
like
something-
Batman too than he is Robin in that sense, right?
Yeah,
'Cause
he's
Robin
like-
is
Okay,
a
but
sidekick,
this is
a
the
young
Nolan verse.
adolescent
Everything is more
preteen
real. He's not
sidekick.
gonna. In the Nolan verse, he's the Robin.
I
Well,
reject that.
in
sentence.
name only,
I
I'd
reject
say.
that concept.
It's more of a
Name
nod.
only. He's an orphan.
You
He's
just-
an orphan who works as a superhero with Batman. How is that in name only?
He's not a superhero. He's a detective
supposed-
who like shoots a couple
He's-
people. and
So
gets-
is Batman.
He gets kicked around.
He's
I
Batman.
mean, his
Batman
job
version
is a
too.
detective. It's on his like his taxes. That's different.
I didn't know
than
we were going to
Batman.
argue so hard on this point. This is great.
I have a
I didn't know there was,
different.
like,
I have a different
debate
interpretation.
about- We're having a metaphysical debate as to the nature of Robin.
How
in this
far
movie.
can you interpret a character before it ceases being the character? Like it's not Robin.
Okay. Yes, he is.
Well, and his name is
He
completely
says,
different.
My name's Robin.
I know, but like there are like 3 different Robins, and none of them have the same like name as this guy. He's just like a reference
So
to,
so
you know, like
what
it's Batman
is-
V2. You know, he's an orphan like Batman. He believes in, you know, his city, and he steps into
In
the
your
shoes.
guys' mind, it's just a coincidence that his first name is Robin?
Well,
It's
no,
a
again, it's just a
fun
little tip of the
Easter egg
cap.
for the audience.
Well,
and I
dude, they
almost
say
screamed.
not
I almost
funny.
screamed out "no" like Michael Scott in the theater when they said that. It hurt my feelings so much. But
Because you didn't want it to be true that he's Robin.
he's not Robin.
No, there's tons of little nods, like, oh, there's tons of alligators, giant alligators in the sewers or whatever. Like, that's a nod to Killer Croc, but they're not gonna like. There's no literal Killer Croc, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot
It's
of
open
little
to-
like
That
tip
is
of
a
the caps.
much different thing.
I don't
That's
know.
a much different thing.
I don't know. He's
not
Batman
Robin.
version 2.
He's not Robin.
I agree. They just wanted to like get people to go, oh, yay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
The other wait,
I
there's
don't,
another
I don't
part.
like him in this movie.
The other part that I don't like actually in this movie is when Batman and Selena Kyle are walking through the sewers to Bane, and the rhythm of the editing and their kind of strut together gets very, very close to camp. Like it's within their outfits, like it goes from like grounded superhero reality where I'm like, uh-oh, like it's teetering into like absolutely campy, and I have to kind of close my eyes for that sequence because like there's some cool like little fight bits and stuff like that, but it's just too cute, and I kind of hate it.
When I say that the... Oh, go ahead, Chris.
I didn't notice that part. There's a couple parts I didn't care for, but it's like makes me just slap my head. Like I honestly did not know this. I honestly didn't know this entire time that Jim Gordon didn't know who Batman's real identity was. I thought he was just going along with it. How do you not know? The dude literally flew away in a gigantic
How does
multi-billion-dollar
Gotham
outfit.
not know?
There's other rich people.
You know?
There's other
Like,
rich
I thought
people.
he was just playing dumb, you know, like. But
There's other
I don't know.
military like.
No, but I was going to
equipment
say
lying
in that moment when he reveals it, Jim Gordon is the world's greatest detective for remembering that.
That he put a
moment
coat
when-
on one kid a long time
When
ago.
he put a coat on one little kid. He's all, sometimes it's just giving a coat to a little boy. He's like, oh, so that's who you are. I was like, that's what gave it away?
No,
He told, he knew he'd remember. It was a big night for both of them. It was a big case. It was like a famous
mean-
case. He
You
had
never
to take
put
care
another
of like
coat
literally
on any
like
kids.
you know the
That's the
JFK
kind of guy he is,
Jr. of
though.
their world. Yeah.
He's such a sweet guy, though. It seems like he would put a coat on every kid every day just to
That's
like
what I'm saying.
make it
He's
happen.
like,
He's
it
like, oh,
can't
you're
be
one of
the
the
first
billion
coat he's put
kids.
on."
I put a coat on. Get in line, kid. Batman, whoever you are, whatever. This is what I do. But it was just kind of baffling to me that he didn't know. And also, just like one last little gripe at the very end, Bruce Wayne is dead. One of the most recognizable, richest people on the entire planet, and there he is out in public eating with Catwoman.
Chris,
What?
are you saying? Wait, are you
What?
saying? Are you saying the world is too small for a man like Bruce Wayne to just disappear? Because someone else said that in an earlier film, and I'm pretty sure that okay. So what is the theme of this movie? I mean, there are a lot of themes. One is that social and like environmental progress are not possible or shouldn't be, approached in like a big changes kind of way, but instead through like small incremental changes and through philanthropy. But another theme is the way that you kind of find yourself, or like somebody called it, like there was an essay by a guy, Scott Foundis, who talked about how this movie was almost like just Batman Begins again. Like it was just, it wasn't that it was like a sequel to Batman Begins. It was Batman Begins. Like he's older and he's not There's no reason for him to be Batman, but there's something inside of him that is like coming back where he's like, I have to do this again. And like, as someone who now finds himself in middle age, like I feel like this happens sometimes where you look at your life and you're like, what am I doing? Like I've like somehow you've like lost yourself and then you have to find yourself again. And there's this thing like the eternal return, right? Where it's like the idea that time, time is a flat circle, that time repeats itself on like a big scale. But that also kind of happens on like a small scale too. And you find that you you keep repeating yourself and your like life cycles throughout your life. I argue that this trilogy is like a Mobius strip, and that at the end of the movie, he's basically almost back where he was again. And I kind of imagine that him and Selena Kyle are gonna like have to like solve crimes in the future, or somebody will try to blackmail them or something like that. Like it's not the end of the character. It really sets itself up that like this is gonna, in some form, it's gonna keep happening. But
I don't know. It doesn't feel like that there's a emotional toll or a weight that he's now carrying with him as the movie ends in this one. That seems to like guide him forward to prompt him to want to become Batman moving forward, right? He seems like everything's tightly neat. He's like, oh, the city's in good hands. He even gives the mantle basically over to whatever the Blake/Robin character. So I don't know that he's left with that same weight.
so you're saying, like the Dalai Lama, he's sort of transcended this kind of cycle, and he's been able to heal to such an extent that he's broken the cycle, and that because he's gotten over his parents' death, he's gotten over his this other woman's death. We're not going to say her name. That he's now kind of free to do whatever he wants. I like that reading.
It feels like that. Well, plus because, he had to embrace the fear. He had to embrace the pain, in order to get out of the pit. It's the whole, like, the rebirth of the Phoenix. And now he's able to finally, I guess, do what he wanted to do in the first one, or said he wanted to do, which was not have to be Batman anymore, right?
Right.
And now there's even more pieces in place such that he is not necessary, right? Like, now he knows it's in good hands. Even if there is an actual Batman, it's in Robin or whatever his name's hands are, right?
I do love imagining him and Selena Kyle, like, cliff diving or just going on some, like, amazing vacation or something like that. I love the two of them together. I think they're a
Squirrel
great couple.
suit, like, flying through the air jumping out of an airplane,
exactly.
holding hands.
Well, so
she's barely in the movie, but every time she's
what
in,
I was
I'm
saying
like,
when I said like the three, whatever you call it, the love triangle didn't like fell flat for me. What I meant by that was that like there's an undeniable chemistry between Christian Bale and
Anne Hathaway?
no.
Oh, Cotillard, Marianne Cotillard.
Yes, Marion Cotillard, who's great, and I love her, and she's pretty. I just want to say that because I just couldn't remember her name for a minute. But I feel like they have a chemistry that doesn't, but they don't have any moment on screen that makes sense to me of why they get together, kind of thing. Like it just seems strange, like when they do end up boning, where I'm just like, oh, okay. I didn't know what that was coming. And then there's like the Christian Bale Anne Hathaway thing where I don't feel heat from them, but I do think that like, the sort of dynamic that they build up together works. And like, I am happy to see them together at the end. Like they as characters seem to make sense in a weird way, but without the heat there kind of thing. And it just doesn't like, none of it feels, neither one of them feels like I care like who he ends up with in a weird way.
Fully disagree. Okay, so I will admit that the idea of sexual chemistry in a Christopher Nolan movie is kind of ridiculous. I don't think he builds. I don't think any characters have chemistry. I don't think he has it with Marianne Cotillard. I don't think he has it with Anne Hathaway. But I totally agree that the dynamic between him and Catwoman is so good. And one of my favorite moments is because Batman's so tough, and like when we were watching it, and he kind of is like, "Goodbye, Alfred." Jenny was like, Batman's kind of an asshole sometimes, and I was like, yeah. But so I kind of love that like Catwoman keeps catching him off guard and kind of making him into kind of like a fool in some ways. And there's like the very like kind of dumb moment where he's like, so that's what that's like when she disappears and looks the other way, because he looks away way too long. But there's a great moment where he rescues her and she starts walking away and he goes, "You're welcome." And that moment cracks me up, and I'm like, I wish the movie was more like that, like a romantic comedy between him and Catwoman. That's my fix for the movie.
I do want to
leave out Bane, leave out Marianne Cotillard, just like
just bring Danny DeVito in.
This movie, I think, it's kind of the perfect Nolan girl, and I mean, like actress, I should say, Anne Hathaway is, because she is so mathematical in her performances or something too. I don't know. Like it seems like she's got that, she gets painted with that stupid thing of being like, oh, she's such a theater girl. It's like, whatever, everybody is. Like, what are you talking about? I don't like that. But I do think that, like, what people are picking up on is that her performances, you can kind of feel the calculations in them, to me. I don't know. And I think that, like, it really works in this movie because she's playing like a very calculated character. Like,
Yes.
everything that she does is super,
Great point.
Yeah, and I think that she's great in this movie. Like, that
Yes.
moment when she has to go into panic mode when the cops are coming in, like, what a fucking great performance that is in that 1 second. Like,
The intensity of each tiny little scene where it's like, again, it almost, it's totally like out of context. Like, it doesn't work as a story, it doesn't work as a plot, but each scene is so crazy. Like Jim Gordon falling into the sewers, and like, Batman, like, just Bruce Wayne just casually like jumping out of windows and stuff like that. Again, this kind of like fever dream intensity and kind of weird thing where he's being pushed to becoming Batman, and then he just is Batman, and then he's just flying the bat plane through a waterfall and bugging Alfred in the middle of the night, and like, it's like, what's going on? And I do feel like there's a little bit of like the Inception kind of dream logic of like this, that this is Batman, like this thing inside of himself just manifesting, and it doesn't really have anything to do with what's going on,
so
outside
much
of
of that to me also does feel like Nolan not having his heart all the way in it, though. Like, I don't think that it's all. I mean, for
But
example,
that's what I'm saying. But it works, though. I think
it does
Liam
work.
you
Neeson
might be
did
right
show
about
up.
that. But yeah, or the things that he's interested in. Again, the scale, the like kind of like crazy like sequences. But yeah,
But you guys know about his Howard Hughes script, right?
yes.
So,
No.
do you know this, Chris?
No, what's that?
So, I think still to this day, Christopher Nolan's favorite script that he's ever written was a biography of Howard Hughes. And he had Jim Carrey attached, and they were working together. They were making this movie before Aviator came out.
Was this the Aviator? Oh, okay, I was going to say, was this before or after Aviator?
No,
Obviously
so
it would've been
Michael
before.
Mann was making The Aviator. That ended up going to Scorsese after Mann dropped out. And during that time when Michael Mann was working on it, Nolan had written this script, pitched it to Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey brought him like a whole, idea about what he was going to bring to it. And they worked together for like years and made his ideal movie. And then The Aviator came out, and he's like, okay, well, fuck that. I guess I'm done with that. Very sad for him. I mean, I don't really care because it doesn't seem incredibly interesting, that kind of movie to me. But, he was really bummed about it. And it's so clear that he's just like putting Christian Bale as Howard Hughes at the beginning of this movie because he was so bummed about that. Like, he's just like doing you can feel what he cares about. And it's like, I guess, what if Christian Bale becomes Howard Hughes now? Like, Batman's now fucking
But
The Aviator.
it works with the themes. Like, again, it's a kind of a stretch, but it's just and it doesn't really fit fully, but it works in the movie. Like, it's just the whole like emotional
It only works
arc
scene by
works.
scene.
Exactly,
like you said.
exactly.
Like, it works like when he comes out and he does look
Yeah,
so beaten down.
yeah. Haggard.
If you would tell somebody that like one scene from now he'd be strutting into the offices of like Wayne Enterprises like nothing was matter, you'd be like,
He's
what the fuck are you
shaved.
talking
He's
about? But
shaved.
like, yeah.
Yeah, no, you're totally
He's
you're
Batman. He
totally
didn't
right.
know about leg braces.
But
Um,
it's not a leg brace. It's a futuristic leg brace that pulls his legs together and essentially fixes the damage that was done.
and the biggest one is like how he can fix his back with ropes, like a broken back.
That's how
and,
they
like,
did
all
it
that stuff.
before science. That's how they used
Yeah.
to do it.
But I'm not even complaining because, like I said, those are the kind of things that, like, the more I've watched this movie, they bugged me the first time I watched it, and now not only do they not bug me, but I'm just like, oh, who cares? Like, this is an amazing scene on its own.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
Why do I care
exactly.
how it
Wait,
works?
I have to say another parallel to Batman Begins. You guys know that movie started out as a script for Doctor Strange. Did you know that?
No.
So the guy,
what?
Nolan's co-writer on that movie, right, is I can't even remember his name right now, but he was like Hollywood's go-to comic book guy. And
Was it Goyer?
Goyer, yes,
or
yes, exactly.
Jonathan?
So,
David
Yeah.
Goyer?
no,
David
David
Goyer.
Goyer. Thank you.
Right, right.
So he was working on a script first for Doctor Strange, and then nothing came of that. This was like before the Marvel universe, it was just like they were throwing stuff at walls or whatever. And so he wrote a full script, didn't happen. So he was like, we have to give Batman an origin. And it was like, what if he travels to an Asian land and a wise old man
course.
teaches him
Oh my God.
magic-like tricks? And that's why when you watch Doctor Strange, it's the same movie as Batman Begins, and then which then turns into Inception. And if I may just like interject really briefly, something unrelated to this movie at all. Doctor Strange may have been a good movie, but the major flaw with all those films is that Benedict Cumberbatch has one of cinema's greatest voices, but he cannot do an American accent, and it completely destroys not just like his voice is not only destroyed, which again is like one of the great treasures of the cinema, but his performance is bad. Like his performance is bad because of the voice he does. I hate to say it, but that's all I have to say about Doctor Strange. Anyway, yeah. So kind of an interesting thing that both of those movies based on scripts for other movies.
But I was thinking about when you said something about the scope of The Dark Knight Rises, and that's one thing that I really took away. Like, wow, they made it even bigger. Like the city feels bigger, even though it just got larger and larger. And to your point about like these giant scenes filled with people, like, well, how does this work? How does this? And I'm thinking about the way in which, if you're a filmmaker, to make that happen, and I realized. And this is to Travis's point earlier about how it's ridiculous how you can see these extras in the background just kind of swinging. He didn't really film these action scenes like in the other ones with a steady camera. All of this was shot in one big wide kind of frame, and it's kind of smooth, and you see it kind of circling around people. The other ones were like shaky cam, everything's kind of happening really quickly and cutting fast and whatnot. I think that was probably a factor, but I guess the location probably was a huge thing to do with it too, because this movie was actually filmed in Pittsburgh. Right? Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where the other two were filmed in Chicago. And so when you think about a movie in which the entire police force is trapped underground and everything's in martial law, it's got to be a lot harder to get empty streets and all of these more vacant, expansive, feeling city. But you look at Pittsburgh, and the population of Pittsburgh is 300,000 people as opposed to Chicago, which is over 2.5 million, right? And that's actually kind of a stroke of brilliance on the part of the cinematography and the filmmakers, understanding of the world that you're creating with your movie and the physical and actual limitations that go into creating a movie, in a real place with a bunch of people in it, right? Normally. So I thought that was actually really brilliant when I looked at it. I'm trying to figure out why this feels like such a grander scope. And I think the choice to move it to a different location, and it also feels different. Like the snow, you said, like it's falling. It has
feels
this
way different,
right? The city itself is different.
I mean, I can appreciate what you're saying, Chris. I did feel like he kind of dropped the ball a little bit on making Gotham feel like Gotham to me. Like it didn't feel Gotham-y at all,
Right.
And
because it's changed, because all the criminality is gone.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
I think that's the idea.
It's been a tough 8 years.
It's been a good 8 years. It's been a good 8 years.
Yeah.
But again, I think that like I just want to like go back to like the idea that the movie is about kind of like the end of Western civilization, and that we've like Bane says to Batman like, "Victory has defeated you." But like that also is talking about the city too, right? Like they're just like this, bloated police force that are rescuing cats from trees. John Blake says, and
Trees
basically they're just kind of living in kind of like luxury, ignoring like the plight of the lower class. They're just kind of stuck in this this end of history kind of mode. And meanwhile, like the barbarian hordes are at the gates with their furs and their like vague accents of being foreign. The other thing about Bane, besides his like furry collar that is sort of like, Visigoth-esque, is the way he holds his jacket. Did you guys notice that? There's a famous painting
Like a
of
Napoleon?
V.I. Lenin holding his jacket like that. Yeah, I don't think it's Napoleon. I think it's Lenin. And I think that's the threat that Nolan is kind of like pointing at. It's like, people who, grand theories that will like unleash the unwashed masses. And I think, I think I talked about this when we watched Inception, but like the kind of like vaguely brown rioting masses in the first sequence of that movie that is how Christopher Nolan like views the people, and like also like the threats to like, political threats to like Western civilization. And I think that is kind of like hinted at here too. And again, just the idea that like we can't risk any kind of radical like social upheaval, because like what if we had like armed authoritarian like forces like running the streets like violently against the people, and it's like we have that, like that we know about, we have that right now, like we know we have that, and it's again, it's just sort of silly on its face, and I think his politics like look worse and worse with each passing day.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly post 2020, when we like when people did go out to protest and were met with like insanely like violent police.
Violence.
Right.
But yeah, I just want to say I think it's a really well made movie and a really, again, well realized movie, even if the story doesn't hold together and the politics don't hold together and blah blah blah. That last shot of Batman looking at Alfred is really one of like my favorite movie moments of all time. Even though there was no real reason to fake his own death.
No, and but it is a great moment, and it also, I think it's a great shot when Robin Blake is flying into the Batcave at the end. Like that is a comic book frame, and like the way that he lands, like JGL is, I've talked shit about him, but he's a very good like physical actor. I talked about that in Inception, obviously too, but he does a great job with that kind of thing. And just that shot of him sort of coming into the Batcave feels really, Nolan-y and really great. Like I love that shot too.
Great visuals in this movie. I mean, like great set pieces, like action set pieces and sequences, like you said. You could feel like the visions of like the storyboards in a lot of the shots. I think it just looked so good.
That opening scene is such like a blueprint for the whole movie too, because it's like so convoluted what they're doing, and so like, wait, what's happening? They're drawing the blood, and then Littlefinger from Game of Thrones is there, and he doesn't get, like, it's just so like confusing, but like beautiful, and like,
and that score and the
and,
score
like,
too,
the score
pounding,
I
the
almost
chanting.
brought it up, but I'm like, it's too late. But the whole score of this movie is maybe my favorite of the Nolan scores besides Inception.
Yeah,
It's so good.
And speaking of the score, I mean, like the chanting, when the bats fly out of the hole right before he jumps onto the ledge, that's so good.
Yeah.
Even though it's like, do we need to have Batman in a hole for an hour in the middle of the film? Like, is that the best way to end the Batman trilogy? I don't know. But again, moment to moment, it kind of works.
I mean, Batman's hardly in this movie. Like, that's what I said. Like, this is John Blake's movie. Like, or Joseph Gordon-Levitt's the star of this movie in a lot of ways, because he's doing the Batman Begins version of Batman, where he's like sort of discovering the crime of Gotham and like figuring out the problem and like solving the crimes. He's the guy who's doing all the shit. And Batman's really, I mean, especially like physical Batman, not even Bruce Wayne, but just actual Batman is not in this movie. Like, he's probably got fucking 10 minutes of screen time,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, how do you think this like fits into, should we just rate him, I guess is what I'm saying? Like, how do you think this fits into his filmography? All right.
What about you, Ian?
I'll go first. For me, this is going to be surprising to you guys, but it goes Dark Knight Rises, Batman Begins, Inception. Memento, Inception, Prestige, Insomnia, Following.
That's crazy to me. That's crazy.
I never would have guessed that. That's, you totally threw me. Are you serious? Are you trolling us right now? You have all three Batman? It's 1, 2, and 3? Or the
all
Batman?
All three Batmans are 1, 2, and 3.
Ian is troll facing. He's trolling. He's got a full troll face.
Wait. Can you say that?
I love Nolan's Batman movies.
Me too.
Wait, can you say it again? Which are the top three in order of those Batman movies?
Yeah. So it's Dark Knight, then Dark Knight Rises, then Batman Begins.
Right on. That's the order I have
Memento,
them, but not
Inception.
Okay.
Yeah.
So those are No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So those are your top 3 movies of him?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I thought he was trolling, but that's authentic.
We'll see how Interstellar does next, because I do love Interstellar, so we'll see.
I have the Batman movies in that same order, just in different places in my list. So I still love Inception. There's no knocking this movie off my my number one pedestal. So the top spot goes to Inception, then Memento, followed by The Dark Knight. I like The Prestige a lot more than you guys. That's my number 4, followed by Dark Knight Rises, so it's solidly in the middle. Then Insomnia, Batman Begins, and then following.
I love Prestige too. I like that. I mean, you might like it more than me, but I like it a lot. So I kind of have a similar list to you, Ian, but I want to like really qualify this. I don't think any one of the Batman movies is better than Inception, and maybe not better than Memento. Like I really don't. But together as like a unit, I'm also just so in love with those movies. I'm so in love, and we barely talked about it, but Christian Bale as Bruce Wayne, his story, and I wish he got more time with Selena Kyle, or maybe I'll just try to like think about it a lot and have a dream where I dream up the sequel where it's just a spin-off where he and Selena Kyle are getting into adventures on their own on like the Amalfi Coast or something. But for now, I'll rank it the Dark Knight trilogy as a unit, number 1. Inception, number 2.
Same as me then. What are you talking about? The exact same thing as I did.
No, because you ranked each one individually above Inception and Memento. I'm saying that only together as a trilogy can I put them above the movies. Dark Knight trilogy.
Be all together without the other one.
That's why I said I have the same as you, except I wanted to qualify it. I said that. He's not Robin. He's just not Robin. Okay.
Sorry, keep going.
The Dark Knight trilogy minus Robin. Inception, Memento, Prestige, following Insomnia.
Nice.
Memento, Prestige. Nice. Okay.
Thank you.
Wait, did you put?
We're done. We'll see you next week.
You said
We're done with Batman.
No, we can't end this. We can't end this episode bad after last week's Inception episode where we're just like, wow.
Is that how it ended?
It ended on a whimper, which is kind
now
of
we're ending on a bang.
Yeah.
All the better for it. So we'll see you next week.
We'll see you next week for
See you next week.
Interstellar.
Can't
See
wait.
you, film friends.
Maureen Hathaway.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Auteur Detour. We'll see you again next week.